Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Fratello Talks, the weekly short-form podcast where we skip the intro and jump right into it. This week I'm joined by my colleagues
Daan
and
Gerard.
And Gerard, you're making your video podcast debut today, and we are here to talk about G-Shocks.
Yes.
Yep.
And so we have you on as a sort of a special guest because you know a thing or two about G-Shocks. People watching the video podcast will obviously see what's on the table here in front of us. But before we jump into that, let's do a quick wrist check. Dan, what is on your wrist today?
Yes, I'm wearing I think a so-called Casioque.
Casioque.
So,
okay.
and it's the transparent one, jellyfish one.
Okay.
Reference number GA21007AER.
Perfect.
Or SKE7A. I found two reference numbers, so maybe people recognize one of those. And it's already becoming a little bit yellowish.
Okay, right. Yeah, I can see. It has a little bit of a
yellow fish
sunburn there.
Yeah, I haven't been wearing it a lot, but still, it's becoming a little bit more yellow. So
right.
Yeah.
I guess it's a natural occurrence with these sort of transparent models.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very nice. And Gerard, what is on your wrist?
I'm wearing almost vintage, 1996. It was the first MRG G-Shock, and it's kind of a square. The reference number is MRG 110. So it was the first MRG in this shape in 1996.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, very, very cool. Yeah, I think we're all going to be using our cheat sheets today. At least I know that I've prepared mine for this episode. So, and on my wrist I have hit the mic really hard. I have the solar-powered GW6900 1JF, which is just the sort of the other shape. I always, when I think of G-Shocks, I think of the square, but this is kind of the sort of horseshoe shape.
The third eye.
The third eye, yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, true, of course, because it has the three sort of registers. And this is a solar model, it's for me that's the two shapes that I really enjoy with G-Shock. It's either the square or the third eye, as they call it.
Well, and you also have it in a different color, right?
Yeah, I have a white one that is it's one I picked up I think about a year and a half ago. Yeah. It's currently run out of battery, so so it's been put away in the box, and it's not a solar one. No, so it's out for the count. I think that is the DW6900 FS-8CR.
You could just replace it yourself, right?
I could. It's a little trickier than you might think.
Okay.
But there's plenty of YouTube guides out there and plenty of videos about how to do it. I mean, you just have to take a little bit of care with removing. There's like a little bit of a shield for the battery and all that stuff, but it's fairly straightforward. It's not comparable to watchmaking or to servicing a movement or anything like that. But yeah,
there's a shield and there's a little spring which you should be aware of.
True.
Which is
it sits on top of
it does the beeping normally and
Okay. Nice. So I think that we can jump into it. What inspired the podcast was really the fact we were having a conversation during one of our editorial meetings, and we were really saying everybody, no matter at what stage in collecting you're at, you probably have had or have at least one G-Shock. And I think that's something that's maybe doesn't apply to just about everybody, but I think that most collectors will have at least one G-Shock in their collection, and it's a nice thing to have a G-Shock, I think, and it's maybe not a watch that you're going to wear every day, though you certainly could. But let's start with you, Gerard. When did you first sort of discover G-Shock? When did you first get into it, and how did what we see here in front of us for our video for our audio listeners? You should tune into the video, but people watching the video will see that there's a bit of a smorgasbord of G-Shocks here in front of us.
I think when I first got into it, it was really when G-Shock started in the 80s. I didn't collect them back then already, but and as well, I was at an age that they were still relatively expensive. So the Casios, I did have Casios before, but they were more the cheaper ones. The 91 models and those ones. And I really couldn't give a certain point where I started to collect them. But
right.
I mean, once you bought one,
yeah.
you see another one, and you buy another one, and then once in a sudden it's a flock, and
exactly.
and it becomes more and more.
Yeah.
And as well, it's most of them are in a price level on that it's not. I mean, it doesn't break the bank too much.
Yeah, for sure.
It was only later on that I started to buy and collect more expensive models as well. Like, the titanium, the titanium one which came out a few years ago.
Yeah,
and if I wear one, it's either the 5610, the regular one with solar and radio control, or the titanium one, because it wears beautifully and it feels really like a high-end watch.
Yeah, for sure. Super light, really comfortable, and it's of course these watches are feature packed.
Yeah,
I mean, for me it was a recent discovery to go from the most basic modules, which just have a backlight, chronograph, and maybe a couple of alarms and a stopwatch, to then discovering sort of something like this one, which has solar and of course you have a world time feature where you can set it to just about any time zone you can imagine, as well as programmable alarms and all kinds of bells and whistles. So they really cover all the bases, and as we will see, as we've already seen with Lex's tough testing of them, they can certainly take a bit of a beating, right? So how about you, Dan? How did you? When do you remember your first G-Shock? Do you remember when you started sort of paying attention to the brand? And
well, actually, I think my first G-Shock was a Casio that was not a G-Shock.
Okay.
So when as a kid, I used to go hiking with my parents. And we used to go with a guide that would take us through the mountains. And I remember one of the guides wearing a Casio, I think it was a Casio or a G-Shock watch with a hybrid dial. So I always liked the combination between the analog hands and the digital dial behind. And I remember asking my parents for I want a watch like that, and I wanted it to be able to tell me the altitude and temperature and things like that. But then, of course, they got me a really simple Casio watch that wasn't a hybrid dial. It was just a digital dial. But it had the G-Shock shape already and a very bright yellow rubber strap. And then, when I became older, I was able to buy my own watches. So that's when I bought a Square as well. Also the radio-controlled one. Mm-hmm. And it had a bracelet. So it doesn't happen that often that it has a bracelet. Yeah. But actually, then I encountered someone that was looking for that exact bracelet.
Okay, right.
And my watch actually had an inverted dial.
Right,
with
negative display.
Dial, yeah. And I couldn't read it, so I told the guy I'm not wearing it because I cannot really read it. If you want the watch for the bracelet, then you're able to buy it. And then I sold it to him, and then I saw the Casio, which I'm wearing right now.
Yeah, when it debuted, I guess it must have been a year or two ago. Where it made quite a splash, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
became very quickly a hugely popular model, and I think that they sort of cost about $100, maybe. Some of them a little less, some of them a little bit more, depending on the color and everything. But
I just looked up mine, and I think it was €100. And I really like the transparent one because it reminds me of stainless steel, actually, that you have on your wrist a little bit. It was a little bit more white than it is right now, but still I really like it. And this one does have the hybrid dial, so with the analog hands and the digital dial. And I would have liked it to have maybe Bluetooth or solar power.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But this one doesn't. But for now, it's still running, and I wear it every once in a while.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, what I kind of like about them is that they really as soon as you have the G-Shock name, for the most part, you're going to have 200 meters of water resistance. You know that they're as shockproof as you might want them to be. I think Lex got the better part of one by running over it with a go-kart going 45 or 50 kilometers an hour, which that's understandable that there it might lose a button or two. But I mean, for the most part, when it comes to daily use, you can do just about anything you want with them. And I find that for me, my use of G-Shocks, I'll use my Square, the very basic quartz, non-solar, non-radio Square when I'm running in the mornings, because it's kind of a nice way of just keeping track of time. I won't actually time my running with it, but it's just nice to sort of go, okay, I should start heading back home and getting ready to come into the office, that kind of thing. And just because it's so lightweight, and I know that after I'm done running, I'll just wash it under the sink and leave it on the shelf, and then it'll be ticking right on time next time I need it, right? Yeah. So it's for either that or any sort of exercise or going on a hike, that kind of thing, where I feel that it's good to have a watch there where it doesn't matter what happens. I mean, I think I paid for that one 36 under 40 euros, and at that point, I don't like to think of any of my watches as disposable, but it's basically like, well, if anything happens, it's completely fine. Yeah. But how about you, Gerard? You have a unique experience from us, because you have some G-Shocks, like you said, the titanium one, that are a little bit more on the pricier side of thing. What is like the experience of wearing that?
For me, it really feels like wearing a high-end watch, and that's not only about the price. I thought that when the first titanium came out, it was like 1,500 euros, which is a lot of money
for sure.
For a G-Shock, specifically because you hardly see any difference between the plastic one and the titanium one. But wearing one is it's a different experience. It feels differently, and how it's produced as well. You can see that there's the finishing is much better. And, on the other hand, I'm using G-Shocks quite often in situation where you don't want to think about your watch, or where it's not that safe to wear something which is more obvious, a high-end watch. And and then as well, I love all the functions you have. It's very quickly to change from time zone. There's always an alarm if you need one in the morning. Sure. There's a stopwatch for timing, whatever. Yeah. And the thing as well, they do have so many functions, but still I find them very natural to know how it works, to operate it. It's very intuitive. Yeah, it's very intuitive. Yeah. And even if you don't use them for a long time, as soon as you pick one up, it's quite easy to use it again with all the functions it has.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely the kind of thing where for this one, which is a little bit more multifunctional, I had to do a bit of research and watch a YouTube video about how to sort of unlock all the features and how to use them. And but once you've watched it, you just go, basically it's everything's there at a press or two of a button, which is fairly nice. So I wanted to say, you obviously have quite a collection. Is your favorite would you say the titanium G-Shock?
Yeah, that's at the moment. That's my favorite. There is after this titanium G-Shock Square, there was the MRG.
Right.
In fact, one of the MRG I'm wearing now is a stainless steel one. That one is like 20 years after this. It came in titanium again. That has an even different price tag, like 3,500 euros.
Yeah, I remember we had those. There was a golden version and a silver.
There's a black and a silver one.
Black and silver.
Black and a silver one. Yeah, exactly. It. Yeah, and those are produced totally different than any other watch. I might save up for one in the future. I'm not sure, but at the moment, the titanium definitely is my most popular one and most important one as well. Although I wear the other ones as often as I do wear them. For me, it's very important, and Daan already mentioned that as well. It's very important that they have a positive display. In the beginning, I collected some with negative displays as well, and I still have one or two in my collection which have a negative display, but I really find it very hard to read them, and
you've modified some, right?
One.
You've swapped out the module of one so that you could actually wear it, right?
Yeah. There's one which was one of the first with the solar power and radio control,
right.
Everything, but it had a negative display, and I swapped it with a module which had a positive display.
Cool.
Just because I liked the model so much and I wanted to wear it, but I
really it's
couldn't.
Not super legible. Yeah, for sure.
And it's quite an easy thing. It's just taking one out, and I had another watch with this module, and
okay, just swap them out.
Yeah,
interesting.
Have you seen the new negative display? Because they're switching now to the MIP
LCD. It's like a
memory
LCD style.
Memory in picture screens or something.
Yeah.
Are those more? I think those are more legible.
Yeah,
or easier to read
than the classic sort of LCD
ones. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
We had one of the sort of the active square models
one, right?
that I believe also had I don't know the reference, but it had the heart rate sensor on the back, and that was quite impressive. The screen was super bright. It also had the sort of auto backlight and was. I would just kind of worry about the energy consumption of those, how long the battery actually lasts. I'm sure it's completely fine, or it's maybe it was even a rechargeable one.
So
like
rechargeable.
I don't think partly solar, but I think like you could set it down on a little charging pad, and then you could have maybe like a week or two if you were using obviously all the features. It was something like that. I think we definitely have an article on it, so we'll link to that in the sort of companion article to this podcast.
I think that new negative
is much
display
better.
is much better. Yeah.
The thing with those watches are the shape isn't exactly the shape as the original square, and I really try to keep it to keep it a bit within one shape of watches, because otherwise you get lost in so many references and so many models that but the display is much better, even if it's negative. It's much better than the regular or the old displays.
Have you ever had the experience of like saying, "Oh, I'm glad I was wearing a G-Shock right now"? Like, did anything happen to any of your watches? Did you?
No, not specifically. But I mean, if I know beforehand that I might be in a situation that I don't want to risk any other watch, I'm wearing a G-Shock anyway. So that's thought up front.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And so we spoke about how it's kind of a watch that every collector owns because of this sort of low price of entry. And then we've briefly touched upon this sort of higher end offerings and these MRGs that are very impressive with a case built of many, many parts.
Yeah.
Dan, you recently covered a very high end G-Shock.
Yes.
Maybe perhaps, the piece unique, which in the G-Shock space is probably not very common. What did you think of this of that watch?
So it was it is a G-Shock developed actually in collaboration between the G-Shock designers or engineers and artificial intelligence.
Right.
And they asked artificial intelligence to make a watch or a watch case that would actually help absorb the shocks.
Right.
So it has a very organic shape, and it's
it's a bit skeletonized.
Exactly. And it's made out of 18 karat yellow gold, so not gold, something you expect from a G-Shock.
Perfectly shock absorbing material.
Yeah, exactly. It's very soft.
True.
Heavy. But they're expecting to. I think they are. Auctioning it in December, beginning of December.
I believe so,
in Geneva, and I think they're expecting to get like from 70,000 euros to 140,000 euros.
Wow. Yeah.
Which would make it the most expensive or most valuable G-Shock ever, because I think they did because it's an anniversary model that they also brought out an anniversary model a few years ago. And that one was a limited edition of, I think, about 35 pieces.
Right.
And they were all sold very quickly, but it sold for, I think, that same price, like 70,000 euros.
Right.
Or dollars. And right now they're expecting to catch this for it. I think this is a pièce unique, like you said. So I think it will actually become a lot more money than what they think it's going to be.
That looks totally different as well, because the other one was
very unique,
a regular square, more or less, just in solid gold.
Exactly, yeah.
But it wasn't such a different design as the one they have now.
What I found interesting was that the square one from 5 years ago was just under 300 grams, which was already quite hefty for a G-Shock, especially with the ones we have on our wrists or the ones in the box.
Yeah.
But the new one is actually 350 grams.
Wow.
So it's a little bit more. Also because the bracelet is also fully made out of yellow gold and
There is some weight difference within the square ones.
Yeah.
Of course, the stainless steel, the solid stainless steel ones are quite heavy. Then the titanium is slightly less, and the plastic ones, or resin, I should say. Otherwise, I got killed by Casio, I think. But the resin ones are even somewhat lighter, and then there's a carbon one as well. They made one of the models in a special material to have it extra light. But then the extra light means only a few grams less, like 9 grams less, and normally it's already nothing. So it doesn't make much sense. It was more like a technical quest to make it even lighter and keep the same specifications of the 200 meter waterproof and the shockproof and everything.
Fantastic. So 2 questions to sort of wrap things up. The first one is, do you guys have a G-Shock Grail? Is there one that you're particularly sort of looking after, or that you would love to add to your collection? Is there one that comes to mind where you'd love to sort of get your hands on it?
Probably the titanium MRG I talked about earlier, although I'm not very sure if I like it that much more than the titanium one I have in my collection already. The first titanium they brought out is more like the original G-Shock than the one they brought out.
It's got that sort of
2 years ago.
brick wall pattern. And everything.
It's slightly different construction as well. So I'm not sure if I might be too purist in that, but I really like to have it as close as possible to the original design.
Fantastic. And you, Dan? Anything that comes to mind?
Well, now that I've seen Gerard's titanium one, it's very tempting. But for me, I think it's a G-Shock should really be the watch that you don't want to think about. And I'm now thinking that this Casio, I still really like the model. But maybe I will upgrade it at some point to a solar powered one.
Right. And would you then go for more the third eye or horseshoe shape, or would you go for the classic square?
I think the Casio, actually.
Okay. True.
Of course. They're now also available with solar power and the radio controlled unit. So I think at one point I will look at a nice color and then just hit the buy button. Yeah, for sure. But, or maybe you're on holiday somewhere and you see it. You're at the airport or you're somewhere nice and you sort of go, it's time for a nice sort of summer watch or something like that. Yeah. And I've also seen the smaller version of the Casio. Because I'm still really a fan of this hybrid dial, so that's why it would probably become a Casio. But I've also seen the smaller version of it, which is, I think, meant to be more catered towards women, but it's actually not a bad size. And they also do some nice colors of those, so I will check those out as well. Those mid-size models are pretty great. We saw the square as well when we were in Japan earlier this year, and it looked quite good. It's the dimensions on the wrist, whether whatever your preference, it's quite nice.
The name is a bit weird. I think they named it Baby G, like the mid-size ones, and that feels a bit like I don't know if I'm the one who should wear the baby watch. And you, Nacho, do you have, except for the one which is still in the post, do you have another one which you think about adding to your collection?
Yes, actually, because but I can't talk about it.
Oh, okay.
And it's because it's one that we have sitting in the safe, and it's one that comes out later this month. So I think people should probably stay tuned. I think it's November 20th. And it's something cool. It's something, with a special material, and it comes on a bracelet as well, which is interesting. Wow. So I'm not going to give it away here, but it's one that our readers will see on the website. Probably towards the end of the month or maybe start of December.
Okay,
good.
Cool.
Yeah,
good.
But very, very cool.
Okay,
nice.
Yeah, for sure. Excellent. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for sharing your stories, and thanks for showing us some of your G-Shocks. I think we're gonna wrap up and then take a look at what you've brought. So thank you for tuning in, and of course, as always, like, subscribe, and make sure to tune in next week for another episode of Fratello Talks. See you then.